I was a few minutes late tonight. Please excuse me. I was having an absolutely lovely conversation with someone new that I met from the amputee community. All right, we're going to give you guys a couple of minutes to jump on board. And in the meantime, hopefully Instagram will allow me to connect. And here we go. Yes, and we are live on Instagram, on Facebook, and on YouTube. Okay, guys, we're going to give you a little bit of time to jump on board. I got the questions that came in from the text messaging service. All right, and as you guys, for those of you who are watching the replay, please put replay into the comments section. Let me know if you have any questions. If you are watching the replay, I do go back after the show closes and answer any questions that were left behind. So if you just want to comment replay or give me a shout out or put your question in, go ahead. In the meantime, I need something to drink. I need my drink. Where's my drink? Where's my
decaf for Cosi and I?
Thank you, sir. Excellent service around here. All right, guys, we're going to get this show started well. So cheers to all of you out there. All right, I see a couple of you jumping on board. You know the routine. Let me know who you are, where you're from, and what is in your mug. All right, in the meantime, we got Krupaleg jumping on board from the Instagram. David, is that you? I'm thinking that's you because of your last name, but it's hard with the Instagram handles to know sometimes who is who. So David, if that's you, I appreciate the shout out very much. Mucho gusto verte de nuevo. We got Richard Elliott on board with Texas with his water and coffee. We got Martin coming in from Loveland, Colorado. Scott coming in from West Virginia with his cold root beer zero. That sounds real good. And then Kim from Indiana with her hot tea and it's snowing there. Well, we are dipping down into a very respectable 30-something degrees here in Tampa, Florida. So cheers to all of you. That's good coffee right there. All right, let's see who else is going on in the Instagram world. ¿Qué onda, David? Oh, you got a glass of wine? Well, cheers to you, David. You got the right drink right there. I think my answers probably would get interesting if I had wine instead of decaf, but I don't know. Let's see. All right, guys, I'm going to give you another 30 seconds and jump on board. We got a lot of great questions that came in. Some of them are just kind of a little more unusual. Skyflix drone services. Well, that's interesting. We've got Dulcie coming in from Cincinnati, Ohio. Okay, guys, and there's Emily. Got your question here, Emily, and she's got her French vanilla ice latte. All right, we got T-Page coming on board, Paola coming on board from the Instagram channel. Thank you for coming in, guys. For both of you on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, this show is for you, those of you in the amputee community. So if you have any questions, please feel free to throw it into the comments section. We got Jerry Ann coming in from Arizona with her white chocolate coffee. Nice. There's my Canadian. Hey, Tom, how you doing? All right, guys, let's get this show started. For those of you joining me for the first time, welcome. My name is Cosi Belloso. I'm a physical therapist here in Tampa, Florida. Usually it's hot and sticky, but now it's actually really kind of cold. Look, I'm wearing a sweater. I've been a PT now for a little over 22, 23 years. I'm losing count at this point, and my passion is working with the amputee and limb loss community. So Skyflix is from Texas. Awesome. All right, guys. So I had a lot of really cool questions that came in from the texting service. So we'll go ahead and get started with the first one. Hey there, Pam from upstate New York. The individual who wrote in was asking about if I could talk a little bit about the different types of liners. I have done a lot of shows on liners. So guys, if you're interested in like learning a little bit more, I'm just going to kind of briefly touch upon the different kinds, but you can go to my YouTube channel and for sure you're going to find one of my shows that I did just for liners. So there's kind of three main groups of liners that you're going to see. You're going to have the silicone liners, and I actually have visuals today. Isn't that cool? Silicone liners. And then here's another example of one. I think this one's an Oser Ice Ross. So it's a silicone liner. These are kind of probably the most common type of liner I've seen. Usually it's because they're very easily to mold. They're a nice sturdy liner. The silicone is great for a lot of different types of skin. Very, very rarely will I see someone who has a sensitivity or an allergic reaction to silicone. It actually very rarely happens. So it works great for a lot of different types of skin. It's sturdy. It's great for people who are active, right? And this one, for example, this one is a willow wood. You have some prosthetists that they make their own silicone liners. So the Prosthetic Orthotic and Associates is one example. So that's kind of like probably the most common liner that I see. All right. The next one that you see, probably second most common that I see, is the elastomer liner. It's also known as the gel liner. And I like to call this like the Cadillac ride of liners. It's a little more cushy. It provides a little bit more protection. It's meant for folks who are not quite as high activity level. So it just kind of gives them a nice cushy ride there with the gel liner. And typically it's a gel liner because it looks like silicone. A lot of these liners will look the same when you're just looking at them. But then when you rub your hand on it, the liner has like a little mineral oil on it. So it's always going to have a little bit of a residue there. So it's nice for that skin protection as well. Okay. And then we have our, oh my gosh, PU liners. Sorry. I'm like, custom polyurethane liners. Okay. And this is kind of like the Ferrari of liners. They do tend to be more expensive. They are custom made. What's great about these liners is it shuttles pressure away from different points. So me personally, whenever I have someone, for example, who's a below the knee amputee and has a lot of grafting on their residual limb, and maybe they even have a prominent tibia bone sticking out, the first thing that comes to mind is like polyurethane liner. Because it does a great job at, like I said, shuttling the pressure away from some of these really sensitive areas. It takes a little more elbow grease to kind of get folks to order one and to have the insurance approved, because again, they are more expensive. But to me, I've seen it really be a game changer for folks who have a lot of issues with skin tolerance and skin breakdown. This is one of the first things that I usually recommend to folks, like saying, okay, if nothing is wrong with the way the socket is fitting, let's take a look at the liner and see if perhaps you can trial out a polyurethane liner. Okay, so those are the three kind of basics of liners. All right, let's see who else is on board this evening. Ooh, we got a lot of people jumping on board from Instagram. We got Brandy coming on board, Stephen Smith, and the Duke, also known as Tom. Tom, thank you so much for writing. I appreciate that very much. So Harsh has got his Alps and Willowwood. Yep. And we got Dennis coming in from Riverview. I got a Florida boy right here in my backyard right now. Hey, Dennis. We got Grant on board, checking in from Cold, Utah, drinking your Diet Dr. Pepper. All right. And you've got Skyflix is from Texas and drinking his Dr. Pepper Zero. Very cool. Very cool. All right, guys. So just a quick, public service announcement. I will be sending out a survey in the next couple of weeks. I mentioned this on last week's show. So at the end of every year, I send out a survey, and it's usually it takes honestly less than 3 minutes, because I've timed it 3 minutes to complete the survey. It's like 10 questions. And it's questions from myself and questions from my sponsors. And basically, we want to know what you guys want. So you're going to find a lot of different questions. You're going to find questions about the kind of feet that you like, whether you have an adjustable socket. For my case, I like to learn what is it that you guys want to see on the show. So this input that you guys give on this survey, when it comes out, we're a little bit behind, but we're going to get it out there, is very valuable for planning our next year. And it also shows my sponsors why we need to keep the Cozy Talk show going, and providing it as a resource for the limb loss community. So for those of you who are signed up for my e-blasts, keep your eyes peeled. Those of you who are not signed up yet for my e-blast, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, here's the website so you can go get signed up for that e-blast. And yes, of course, I will be doing a giveaway associated with this survey. So that is my public service announcement for today. Let's get back to the good stuff. We got Dick Devers on board joining in, and Instagram is quite lively this evening. This is kind of cool. All right, let me go to my next question. Okay. This one says, my husband Norman has had 2 above the knee amputations. It's been almost a year and his phantom sensation has subsided some, but he still feels his feet burning, itching, etc. Does this ever subside completely, or is this something that may subside over the years but never really goes away? So I kind of morbidly joke around that the person who finds the cure for phantom pain will be so rich, they're going to be able to buy their own island someday. It's certainly, aside from socket fit, it's probably one of the most troublesome parts about being an amputee. And I think what makes it so difficult is that it presents so differently in every person. It's really like a fingerprint. I've never met 2 people who have the same kind of phantom pain with the same triggers, with the same relief. And likewise, I've also done several shows. There's a couple of really good ones on YouTube that I've done where I go really into depth on the whys behind phantom pain, conservative management, pharmacological management. So, and the thing is, I think what makes it so hard is we truly are not sure what causes phantom pain. right? And I tell people, you can line up 10 different clinicians and they're all going to give you a different reason as to why they think phantom pain occurs. Okay. Theories such as, the brain remodeling, also known as neuroplasticity, right? That the brain is trying to read signals from a place that is not there, from something that is not there anymore. And the nerve endings that are at the end of the residual limb are just kind of going crazy because they're trying to give input back. You've seen procedures such as targeted muscle reinnervation, where they try to give those nerve endings something to do by putting them back into the muscle, right? There's theories about how the psychology of how a person lost their limb contributes to phantom pain. I have one young gal that she lost her leg in a terrible motorcycle accident, and she says that when her phantom pain hits her, it feels like the day her leg fell off, or was torn off during that motorcycle accident. Like, that's the sensation that she has, and I hear a lot of very similar stories. Let's do a quick Cosi poll, because this is something I always feel like I learn a lot from you guys when I hear your input on this. How many of you experience phantom pain? And if you know what your trigger is, put it into the comments section. So please put it in there. When I talk about, hey there, Victor, with your orange soda, when I talk about phantom pain, usually one of the first things I start off is helping people understand that there's 3 different types that are under this category. We have phantom pain, phantom sensation, and residual limb pain. Okay. And for me, it's really important that we understand, both as patients and clinicians, the differences between those 3. All right. So phantom pain, it's exactly that. You have pain. It's either crushing, burning, tearing, electrifying. I mean, I've heard all sorts of adjectives and expletives to describe phantom pain, and it's happening in the foot that is no longer there. Okay. And guys, I've had many patients come into my clinic over the years that they weren't aware of what phantom pain was, and they thought they were going crazy because they just couldn't understand why they were feeling something that wasn't in the foot. Okay. Phantom sensation, okay, is different from phantom pain. It means that you feel the foot or the toes, okay? Some people will feel it like a pressure sometimes, but it's not associated with pain in their foot. And in some cases, people who have phantom sensation, they kind of are able to use it to their advantage when they're starting to learn to use a prosthesis, because they have a better sense of where their foot is in space. I've met a couple of people that have kind of been able to kind of use it to their advantage, and it's kind of neat in that regard. Let's see, we got Linda coming on board with a Hurley blood orange seltzer. Y'all got some interesting drinks. So Victor says yes, he has the phantom pain when he sees that his blood sugar is elevated. Okay, so there's phantom pain, phantom sensation, and then residual limb pain. Okay. And again, this is pain that is originating from the actual residual limb that is actually still physically there. Okay. So why am I harping on this? Okay. So it's important to understand what it is that you are experiencing, because it will help determine how you can treat it. Hey there, Kathy. So David says he's got a lot of phantom pain, and it's usually set on after lots of activity or anxiety. Okay. So for example, when I find someone asking about their pain, I try to, determine the difference, because residual limb pain can sometimes cause the phantom pain. Okay. So what are things that can cause residual limb pain? Bone spurs and neuromas are probably the 2 most common reasons people are complaining about pain in their residual limb that can then trigger a phantom pain. Okay. People who have back problems, right? A lot of people who have back pain, it sometimes is referring into the residual limb, and that'll zing off a phantom pain. Okay. So again, it's really, as a clinician, it's important for us to try to see if we can determine what is causing the pain, where it's coming from. Okay, because we do have ways to work around bone spurs and neuromas. It can be a little bit extreme and challenging, but we have something we can do for those things. The same thing with back pain. We have a lot of great options nowadays with pain relief, for issues that are coming from the spinal cord. Okay. Christy says, when you said phantom pain, my limb jumped. Depends, sometimes triggers when I go lie in bed. I know, and it's interesting. I'll never forget who was on the show. Greg Menino. Greg Menino was on my show, I don't know how many times over the past years. Wonderful human being. He's a 22-time Olympic athlete. And he's an above the knee amputee, and he's a prosthetist himself, phenomenal clinician. And he and I actually did one of my bigger shows on phantom pain. And by the end of the show, he said, Cosi, we really need to stop talking about this, because just the talking about it, I'm starting to feel phantom pain coming up into my limb. And I have another friend that she's like that as well. We don't discuss phantom limb often because she says I'm starting to feel it coming on and I don't want to trigger an episode, right? Totally understandable. So when it comes to the phantom pain, again, it presents differently with every individual. Some people feel it right away, post-op day 1 after surgery. For some people, it takes a few weeks for it to start manifesting. And other people, it might take even a few months. With some people, the pain happens consistently, right? Every day, all day, and it's just kind of there and just sitting there present. Many people, it's episodic, so they only get it, not every single day. They might get it a couple of times a month, or they might get it a couple of times a year. It can be severe. It can be severe to the point where it's debilitating and not allowing them to function in their daily lives. Or it can be a mild nuisance, and then everything in between. Okay. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here because every one of you who has phantom pain probably has a different presentation. Dick Devers has never had phantom pain. And that does happen too, guys. I've seen that happen where some people, they don't have phantom pain or sensation, and that's just how it is. Jill, what you doing in the hospital, girl? Said Dulcie says it's so weird when you talk about it. I get phantom sensation. Sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. So now the question is if you can identify that it's phantom pain, but it's not coming from your residual limb, meaning it's not being caused by an aroma or a bone spur, like what's an amputee to do, right? And there's 2 main ways of addressing phantom pain. You can address it conservatively or pharmacologically, or a little bit of both. I'm of the camp that says, let's try the conservative management and exhaust that as much as we can. And then if the person is simply not able to function, if the pain is interfering with their daily function, then we add a little bit of the pharmacology to coordinate with conservative management. Okay. And again, this is where communication between the physical therapist and the pain doctor who's prescribing these medications is really, really important. Oh, good, Jill. I am happy to hear that. Happy to hear that. Okay. So what are some of the conservative methods? For me, proprioceptive training. That's huge. My personal theory as to why people get phantom pain is because the brain is looking for input, right? It wants input. It wants there to be a foot there. So it's trying to send those signals and it's trying to remodel how it perceives the body, right? So when we put a prosthetic leg on and we are putting that proprioceptive input into it with weight-bearing exercises and strengthening exercises and balance and coordination, we are feeding the brain all that wonderful new information, okay? I do not have fancy research studies. I just have 22 years of experience in my belt, okay? But what I see is the patients that really get that early proprioceptive training, and even folks who are late to the game with getting their PT months to years out, okay? They tend to have less phantom pain, okay? And if they had severe phantom pain, it starts to diminish. Doesn't always go away, right? And I can never predict. Honestly, I can never predict who's going to have less phantom pain. When is it going to go away? I really can't. Okay. But proprioceptive exercise is huge. And again, that's another caveat for me to advocate for getting physical therapy immediately after you have an amputation. From day 1, your physical therapist should be working with you. Okay. The other thing is, because it's the brain trying to, again, perceive something and trying to interpret something that is no longer there, we want to give the brain information. Okay, and now we have a lot of great techniques. We have things like mirror box therapy, and mirror box therapy has been around for a really, really long time, for decades, right? And I feel like it's kind of the unsung hero. It really doesn't get enough credit sometimes. Okay, and the reason is because sometimes it doesn't give relief that lasts for a long time. Has anybody here tried mirror box therapy? Let's do. You guys didn't do too much in the last poll. I want to hear more from you in this poll. How many of you here have tried mirror box therapy or some sort of variation of it? Let's see. Skyflix says, I had phantom pain real bad right after my surgery, but it has gone away. I was taking gabapentin. And that is sometimes, a lot of times, prescribed for this. Let's see. David says, do you know of any studies that use psilocybin for phantom limb pain therapy? I do not, but I would really love to learn more about that. I don't think I've actually even heard of that. I'm writing that one down, David. Hang on, because I'm going to look that up. Is that something that you've seen used where you're at, Dave? All right, we got Jocelyn on board as well. So Linda says, I tried it when I was in the hospital. Pastor Dave says he tried it. Kathy says she tried it, but it didn't work. Christy says that she tried it. Okay, so for me, guys, when I have someone who's really presenting with phantom limb pain and they're kind of like, I like mirror therapy. Why? It's inexpensive. It's just like a $10 mirror from Walmart. It's non-invasive. Okay. And the nice thing is I've never had a patient where it made their phantom pain worse. You know what I mean? So for me, when I think about mirror box therapy, I'm like, okay, let's give this a try. It won't hurt, right? It won't hurt anything, right? So the trick with mirror box therapy, and actually there's a video of me doing it on a patient for the first time on my YouTube channel. And that was just a really, really beautiful experience. The trick with mirror box therapy is being consistent with it. Okay. So the people that I've seen that have success with it, they do it a few minutes at a time, a couple of times a day, and then they do it consistently every single day. One of the common things I hear is that it doesn't work, right? That they put it on and they felt like it didn't work, or that it worked when their feet were in the mirror and they could see their phantom foot in the mirror, but then the minute they took the mirror away, boom, the pain would come back. Okay. And I'm sorry to say I don't have a perfect solution for that. But for me, I tell people, look, if it works for you, even when you just have the mirror on, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you are in pain and you just need something to find relief, use the mirror. Use the mirror, right? And then again, for me, I'm actually encouraged when someone says, well, it worked when I had it on, but then when I took the mirror out, it stopped working. Then I go, okay, then maybe with consistency, there's when you're going to start to see the results. Okay. And it's kind of hard because it's just like, okay, you got to stop what you're doing for 5 minutes a day, a couple of times a day, put that mirror in between your knees, and do the work. Okay. So then specifically, when the person has, and I don't do a box, guys, I know I call it mirror box therapy, but I have yet to actually build a box. I just put the mirror in between the person's two limbs. Okay. So that when they look in the mirror, it looks like they have 2 feet. And then I'll take the person through different exercises. I'll tell them, okay, wiggle your toes, wiggle the toes on your sound foot, and then make your phantom toes wiggle. Okay. And then pump your ankle up and down on your sound foot, and then make your phantom foot pump up and down in the same thing. Okay. And then touch, using your own touch the toes on your sound limb, and then touch the toes on your phantom limb. And we try all sorts of different things. And again, different things will work for different folks. Okay. Sometimes I still will also use the TENS unit, right? I think TENS unit is another fantastic tool. Most insurance companies will pay for this. They're not terribly expensive if you get them over the counter. And again, as long as you're using it safely and you've been taught how to use it properly by the right professional, you can do a lot of things with TENS. Okay. You can apply it to different parts of your sound limb. You can apply it to different parts of your residual limb and see what works there in combination with the mirror box therapy. Okay. Magic mushrooms. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that for me, Dave. I appreciate that. Anecdotally, it seems more effective for upper extremity rather than lower. Thoughts? That would be interesting. And I'm trying to think why it would be more effective for upper than lower. That one's going to tickle my brain for a little bit. Another one I have been hearing anecdotally is CBD oil. And again, that's something, guys, that I will be honest, I have not read the literature on that yet. So I'm just telling you what I've heard in the scuttlebutt, that topical CBD oil has helped a lot of people. And again, my caveat with that is check with your doctor, right, guys? Especially those of you who have, a lot of medications on board. If you do decide you want to try a topical CBD oil, make sure you clear it with your doctor, because that does soak into your skin and can get into your system. So always, always double check. Let's see. Emily says she tried a TENS and PT and you couldn't feel it. Yeah. And again, these are things that they're conservative, meaning they don't, unless you're incredibly irresponsible with the TENS unit, they're very low risk, right? And it's something that I say, okay, let's give it a try. All right. So someone earlier mentioned that they have been prescribed gabapentin. And again, gabapentin is a fairly strong medication. And I know many folks take it off label to use for their phantom limb pain. So my thoughts on gabapentin are, first of all, trying the lowest dose possible. And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not prescribing these medications or anything like that. I'm just making general recommendations based on what I've seen over the years. Sometimes what I see over the years is that a physician will see a patient who's in a lot of pain and they will prescribe a pretty high dose of this, right? Where a lower dose could have been effective enough, right? In conjunction with other conservative methods like proprioceptive training and mirror box training. Okay. So I'm not against the use of pharmacology or prescription medications to help with phantom limb pain. I just like to see it done very thoughtfully and according to each person's needs. Okay. And not just a general protocol. Okay. Person's coming in for phantom pain. Let's just, write them the standard dosage. And then also, if you are working with a doctor, pain management doctor, making sure you have a lot of communication with them and that they're regularly checking in with you to see how is your medication doing. Are you controlled already? Is it the phantom limb pain, or is the phantom pain subsiding? To me, some of the most successful cases when it comes to using some of these medications is when people are put on the dose of the gabapentin that they need to help with the pain. They also start using conservative methods. They do the mirror box, they do the proprioceptive, they'll do virtual reality, they'll do TENS. And then with the guidance of their doctor, they will start to slowly wean themselves off the gabapentin until they're either completely off it or they have a very, very, very low dose. Okay, to me, that is the more successful cases because you're really, giving the person that relief from the pain, but they're still able to function without huge side effects from these very, very powerful medications. David, I'm going to look up this thing with the magic mushrooms. Upper versus lower regarding mirror box therapy. Perhaps the visual reinforcement on hands is more effective because we look at our hands all the time. Yes. And then the other thing, David, I notice, and again, people, when they do the mirror box therapy, they just put their legs there and then they go, okay, now what do I do? And I'm like, okay, you need to stimulate it. So for me, obviously I work more with the legs than I do with the arms. Yeah, they have to actively wiggle the toes, move the ankle, move the leg. And again, we have to use the TENS unit and apply it in different areas as well. So yeah, I can totally see now that you clarified that for me, that yes, I can see why upper extremities might be more effective with the mirror box, because you're right. We do use our hands more and it's just more intuitive for us to see two hands and then start playing around with them, doing the mirror box therapy. Absolutely. Ortopedia Centroamericana joined in. Bienvenido. All right. So what else we got? Hey there, Denise. There's my Tar Heel coming in from North Carolina. Late, but that's okay. We're happy to have you here. Christy says, I'm taking 300 gabapentin. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And again, guys, this is something that, when phantom pain is becoming something that is affecting my patients' daily lives, then we just keep trying and we keep trying. The other thing, kind of going back to when you've properly diagnosed, okay, it's phantom pain, it's not residual limb pain that's triggering phantom pain. Okay, what is the trigger? What is the trigger? Okay, and again, this is something that when you find what the trigger is, it kind of gives you a little bit more power in preventing episodes. The number one trigger, and again, this is not literature based, this is just Cosi being an old fart based and working for many, many years, stress. Stress is the number one trigger that I've seen among my patients and many of you as viewers, that will bring on the phantom pain. The second one is hydration or lack thereof. And keeping in mind, I live in hot, very sticky, humid Florida, normally very humid. So people are constantly dehydrated, not drinking enough water, not drinking enough electrolytes, specifically magnesium, potassium, and sodium, right? Those are the things, electrolytes, that you lose during dehydration. And a lot of people don't see that part of it, okay? So stress, that those of you who are diabetics, and I think somebody else mentioned it here, that when the blood sugar goes wacko, then the phantom pain starts to go wacko as well. And that's a big one I see also among my diabetics, that yes, when the sugar is not right, then the phantom pain returns. Weather. Many of my folks will say drastic changes in weather. We are definitely the land of hurricanes, especially we did our ancestors proud with this last hurricane season. And there's definitely a change in the air. Like I can feel, I'm not an amputee, but even I can feel there's a change in the air when you know that there's a hurricane coming. There's a change in pressure. And that will set off phantom pain for some of my patients that I have here. Yes? Okay. What else we got? My pleasure. And again, Instagram folks, please feel free to put your questions in or comments. See, Ashley says, my random question. I love Ashley's random questions. Oh, that's good coffee. All right, the bottom of my short leg is constantly tender to the touch. I feel like I'm bottoming out, but adding a sock feels like too much even when I loosen my Revo. I have an appointment next week with my prosthetist, but any ideas of the cause? I mean, you're bottoming out. I mean, you've kind of diagnosed it right there, Ashley. So if it's tender, if the end of your residual limb is tender to the touch, then yeah, that's exactly it. You are bottoming out, and you've been an amputee for a really, really long time, Ashley. So anything like a neuroma, I think you've probably already ruled that one out, but it does sound like you're bottoming out. And if you've got the Revo fit, so that was going to be my first thing, is saying, well, sometimes if you don't have an adjustable socket, putting on one sock is too much, but then you got to fine tune it a little bit, but you have a Revo fit in your case. It could be that your limb is just changing shape. That because you are a very active individual, that the shape of the limb as it's shrinking down is also changing in its actual shape. And that might be why you're going more into the socket. So definitely, I think the appointment with the prosthetist next week is a very good thing, because I know you have a really good prosthetist that's going to work with you on this one. Linda says, oh yes, temperature change. Yeah, absolutely. All right, what else we got? What else we got? Let's see, we got CPO, another prosthetist, Vivian Salazar on board. Welcome. All right, let's see what the other question that came in. This person says, I would love to hear about the pros and cons of the various prosthetic feet and ankles. Y'all are hitting me with the heavy questions tonight, like types of liners, type of prosthetic feet, like all sorts of stuff. Okay. So part of this is a shameless plug, but part of it is also because there's good information on here. Guys, if you go to my website, I started my podcast and my blog at the beginning of 2024. And I can't believe we're almost at the end of 2024. So I've got quite a few podcast episodes out. And the one in particular I want you guys to listen to, if you are wanting to learn more about the different types of prosthetic feet, the pros and cons of each one of them, and then how to go about choosing a prosthetic foot with the help of your PT and prosthetist. You can see under the podcast and blog tabs on my website, cositalks.com. And under the blog, you're going to see everything you need to know about prosthetic feet. And that's one blog article, and it comes with downloadable information. So downloadable, I call them cheat sheets that you can download and have for quick reference. And then another blog article that I wrote that's called how to go about choosing your prosthetic foot. And then there's a podcast that goes with it. So if you guys are folks like me that I'm kind of addicted now to a couple of different podcasts, you can listen to it on the way to work, or you can read the blog, or do both. So it's a huge topic. So I'm just going to kind of give you the quick and dirty. When it comes to prosthetic feet, I don't go by names. Like we've got all these great hoopy scoopy names like the Maverick and the Soleus and the Voyager. They're all these great sexy names that these companies, marketing companies, came up with to sell their feet. But they don't tell you a lot about the actual prosthetic foot, right? And I tease College Park all the time. They've got great names. What you need to know about prosthetic feet is what classification do they fall into. All right. And I kind of came up with my own little classification system based on everything I learned over the years and I have 10 different classifications. All right. We have Satch feet, single axis feet, multi-axial feet, dynamic response feet, energy storing feet, hydraulic feet. I'm running out of fingers. Microprocessor feet, stubbies, running blades, and hybrid feet. Okay. So I know that sounds like a lot. Okay. But once you start to kind of read about what each classification is, it starts to make more sense. For example, the single axis foot, it moves in one axis. So it allows you to move your foot up and down. Versus a multi-axial foot, right? It allows you to have more movement than just up and down. It's a movement up and down and a kind of a side to side and a little rotation movement, okay? So you have all of these different types of classifications of feet, okay? And each foot has a function or what it helps you do, okay? So for example, somebody who's very, very active, right? And they like to move around a lot and they have good balance and good stability. They can handle a multi-axial foot because it has a lot of movement and they'll be able to control it. Someone who doesn't have that great a balance, right? And they need more stability in their foot might benefit from something a little bit more like either a hydraulic foot or a single axis foot. Okay. And again, other active people, that they want a lot more spring in their step, might benefit from a dynamic response or an energy storing foot. Okay. So when it comes to understanding prosthetic feet, you need to determine what is it that you want to be able to do in your life. Okay. Are you a mom running after 4 kids? Are you someone who works at a desk job? Are you a contractor and you're walking on uneven terrain all day? Okay. Are you an Uber driver? What is it that is required in your day? And from there, you determine which classification of foot will work best for you. Okay. And again, I'm just kind of giving you the kind of the, what's it called? Prosthetic foot for dummies. Abbreviation. I still want you guys to go back, to go and read those blocks, because it has a lot more information on it. The most important thing when it comes to choosing the prosthetic foot is to have the input from your physical therapist and your prosthetist, okay? And explaining to them what your goals are. Physical therapist is going to be able to make recommendations from one lens, and the prosthetist is going to be able to make recommendations from a different type of lens, right? We see our patients a little bit differently, and both types of input can be very valuable. And when it comes time to actually picking out that foot that you're going to be waking up every morning to, at least, at the very minimum, I want you to trial 2 feet. 2 feet. Okay. And I always use the analogy of, if you go buy a car, you're going to test drive that car first. And hopefully you'll test drive more than one car, right? Same thing with your feet. And a lot of the companies will have trial foot programs at no charge. I know College Park, for example, they have a 30-day trial program, no strings attached. They will give you a custom made foot, not just an off the shelf foot. They'll get one that's made for you so that you can trial it out for 30 days. Okay. So whether you're a beginner, a novice to using a prosthetic foot, or you're someone who's experienced and you're looking for an upgrade on your foot, okay, trial at least 2 different kinds. All right. So that's kind of my as short and sweet as possible as I could do for prosthetic feet. Ashley says, I currently have the College Park Soleus and I love it. My prosthetist does want me to trial the new TerraFlex. I think that's what it's called. Looking into it, looks amazing. What are your thoughts? I've heard a lot about the TerraFlex. I have people who are very happy with it. And again, I honestly can't think of too many feet that I would tell you don't use them, just because everybody feels the feet differently. And I know that sounds like a cop out and cliche, but it's really true. There are some people that use feet that I go, wow, I never would have thought to recommend that foot to them, and they're loving it. So I would tell you, Ashley, yeah, try the new TerraFlex. It's either going to let you know that, yes, this is in fact a great new foot for you to use, or it might just say, you know what, it's a nice foot and all, but I still like my soleus, right? So yes, definitely trial out different feet for sure. Let's see. Oh, that's a cool handle. I have someone on Instagram called Geez Louise joining on board. I like that handle very much. Okay, let's see what else we got on board. Is it good for below the knee? Yes, I believe so. I don't know much about the TerraFlex. I've just been hearing the buzzwords a lot about it, but I haven't tried it yet. All right, let's see what's another question on board here. Okay, this one. Oh, Emily, I think this was yours. It says, I feel like I keep sliding forward on my wheelchair cushion and not sitting back all the way in my seat. I'm not wearing a prosthesis on my amputated side, and I don't have much strength on my sound side to push down on my footrest to help push me back in the seat. Is there something I can do to make this easier, or could my cushion just need to be replaced? It's a gel cushion. I just worry about pressure sores from slouching in the wheelchair and not always sitting correctly. Yes. So once upon a time, I worked many years in spinal cord injury units. And so obviously the majority of my patients were wheelchair users. So there's just a couple, 1 or 2 little things. When someone is a paraplegic or quadriplegic, they actually have to shift their weight every 20 minutes to prevent themselves from getting an ulcer on their bottom, because it only takes 20 minutes, kind of quick. But how do you teach someone who doesn't have the use of their legs how to do weight shifts, right? So Emily, one of the things is obviously leaning all the way over to the side. Okay. So if you are, this is my right side. If you're a right-sided amputee, I would say lean all the way over to your left, not falling out of your chair, but really, really take the weight off and then use your bum to scoot yourself back. A lot of times when people are trying to scoot themselves back in the wheelchair, they're sitting in their wheelchair and they're trying to do this and they're getting nowhere, right? Because you're just putting all the weight into it. So the first thing you got to do is you got to lean all the way over to the side, take the weight off this side, and then you'll get a little bit of an inch. And then you go to the other side and same thing, and then scoot your bum back a little bit. The other way is leaning forward. And again, you just have to be careful with this one because you can fall out of your wheelchair and we don't want that. Okay. So the other thing is if you lean all the way forward and unweight, take the weight off your bum and then scoot back that way. But I agree. Sometimes with these gel wheelchair cushions, you need to have them either replaced or revamped. Something else I used to do as just a quick hack is I would take a towel roll and just, kind of make a little bit of a towel roll, and I would place it underneath the cushion where the knees are, because then it would kind of create a little bit of a bucket. Does that make sense? To keep the person back in their chair. But you must be careful with doing that because A, you don't want to cause skin breakdown under your knees, and B, you still need to be able to do weight shifts. Okay. So that's just something I would use when I had no other choice and I had to keep that person in the chair so they would stop sliding out. Then we would just kind of tip them back just a little bit and help them stay in that chair. Okay. All right. Tom says, I've had the TerraFlex for 3 months now and it's amazing. The energy return is incredible. Love it. That's the feedback I've been hearing. Again, I haven't gotten my hands on one. I kind of want to see one in action to see what it's like, but I've been hearing some pretty amazing reviews from it. I think I even had one prosthetist said that it rivals and it's even better than the All Pro. All right, this question is, let's see. Kruppa, you still on there? Have you worked with the TerraFlex yet? All right, hang on. I lost my question. Come back. Okay, this one says, do you have any experience with zero drop shoes? I find that I walk the best with shoes that have less than 1 millimeter drop. What brands of shoes are others wearing? And I have a decent variety for winter, but struggle with summer shoes and sandals, looking for more variety. Okay, so zero drop, and actually the shoes I'm wearing today would be considered zero drop because there's absolutely no difference between the heel and the toes, right? It's like basically just one level. These are kind of like cheap shoes, so they don't really have any kind of heel drop on them, okay? So when it comes to the heel height of your shoes, first of all, when you're first learning how to use a prosthesis, I will typically tell patients, pick one pair of shoes that your prosthetist is going to align you to and stick with those shoes until you are independent with your mobility, which can be a while. And it's a little frustrating because people are sometimes like, okay, I've been wearing the same shoes for the past 6 months. Can I please try something different? Okay. The thing is when your prosthetist is aligning, your prosthetic foot and leg, they have to take into account the basic 5, and it's usually like a 5 millimeter alignment that they have to make to accommodate for your shoe. Okay. So if you wear a shoe that is higher heeled, and I'm just exaggerating here, that's higher heeled, okay, you're going to have a hard time bending your knee and it's going to feel like you're walking uphill. And then the opposite. If you wear a shoe that's actually a lower heel than what your prosthetist set you for, you're going to feel like your knee is kind of buckling and that you're stepping into a hole kind of thing. Okay. So when it comes to that, you need to be aware of those heel heights. Okay. So it doesn't matter if you like low drop shoes, high drop shoes, your prosthetist should be able to align it accordingly. It's when you start changing. When it comes to sandals and things like that, summer shoes, actually the majority of them are very flat. They have zero drop because that's why they're sandals. And if you just type in zero drop sandals, you're going to get a whole list of that on Google. So the main thing is just making sure that alignment is done properly. Now, on occasion, some patients who are very experienced amputees and they know how to walk in any kind of heel shoe, sometimes their prosthetist will teach them how to change the height accordingly. Okay, but again, I only say that's okay to do if your prosthetist gives you permission and teaches you how to do it, right? Because you can throw off a lot of things with your alignment when you start messing with the heel height. Other folks, they do like to use prosthetic feet that have a changeable heel height. Oh gosh, of course the name runs out. There's one shoe called the Runway, and I think that one's Proteer. It used to be Freedom Innovations. I think it's called Proteer right now. College Park, I believe the Accent is what they have. And I think that's an adjustable heel foot as well. Emily says, I used to have a Roho cushion, which is supposed to be one of the best cushions, but I hated it and ended up with a pressure sole. Really? No, and I love Roho cushions. But you know what, Emily? Everyone's a little bit different. So yeah. Tom says, invite me for dinner. I'll show you mine. That's good. That's good. Okay. David says, I hope that Oser gets their together ASAP and starts selling the Terra to Latin America. Hopefully they're listening in, David, and maybe we can get them to pony up. I know, right? All right, we got Catherine Lamprey on board. Thank you for joining in. All right, guys. Yeah, so again, I have one patient right now that if anybody were to get a Terraflex, it'd probably be him. Stay tuned, guys. I will learn some more about this foot because, yeah, I've been hearing quite a bit of buzz around it. So I will do a little bit more research. Actually, I'm going to write it down. So Terraflex. I'm going to write it down to do more homework on that and hopefully bring you guys a little bit more information on next week's show. All right. Oh, yeah, the Roho not being able to keep it properly inflated. Yeah. Yeah, the Roho cushion, you definitely have to, it's a little bit more of an upkeep in that regard. I think a lot of times, like people felt like they were sinking a little bit too much into the Roho cushion. But again, I saw just as many people with custom gel cushions as they did with the Roho cushions. All right, guys. So Viviana says, depende del paciente. They could have the option to teach some alignment, but now Autobach with Talio Adjust and Oser could be an option. Absolutely. So a lot of companies out there, no, súper bien, Viviana. Y si lo quieres decir en español, sin pena, que tengo mucha gente aquí que habla en el español. Hey, Mr. Terrific. I like that name. Long time no see. Good to see you too. So yeah, guys, there's definitely a lot of options out there on the market now for adjustable heel. For those of you who like to change up your shoes, I will say this though, sometimes the adjustable heel feet, at least the ones that I've seen, not all of them, they may not be as active. Like they're meant more for the cosmetic side for allowing you to change your heel height. Oh my gosh, Haravamsh, I haven't seen you in a long time. Holy cow. Good to see you, man. Nice to see you. That's awesome. All right, so I've got someone coming in from India, and I've got Carl coming in saying good morning to me from Taiwan. That's pretty cool. Cozy Talks going global. All right, guys. I think... Okay, so Dick Dever says, I just moved to the Oser Proprio to get back into my motorcycle boots. Awesome. Let's see. Dave says, I literally asked Oser for a price quote and they can't provide it yet. Product rollouts need to be way more global. That's so weird that they can't give you a price. I don't understand that. I'm like, you want to make a sale, you tell the person the price. If they can buy it, they can buy it. But, you know, that's probably why I'm not the head of a $1 billion company. Yep. So Viviana, ¿de dónde tú eres? ¿De dónde me estás hablando? Me da curiosidad de saber. So Viviana, and it sounds like she's a prosthetist. She also agrees. She says, yes, for people who are high activity level, adjustable feet are not necessarily the best choice because it's mainly just for changing the height of the shoe. And it's true. I appreciate that, Dave. Cheers to you. We still need to expand Cosi Talks a little bit. I need to start doing it in Spanish so we can go a little more into Central and South America there and start doing Cosi Talks in Spanish. I think that would be a lot of fun to do. All right. Okay, guys, I think I answered all the questions this evening. So again, for those of you who have not, this is kind of my plug for this evening, if you don't mind. If you have not signed up for my e-blasts, please consider doing so. For my Instagram folks, you can go to cositalks.com. I have a lot of resources. I've got a lot of podcast and blog and all this kind of YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff that's there. So I really would appreciate if you guys wouldn't mind kind of exploring, following me on different platforms. It really just helps me show, again, my sponsors and show them, hey, this is a resource that we need to keep going and keep expanding and hopefully getting a little bit more global and getting the word out to folks who need the information. Linda says, question on Facebook. We can see how many people are on. Can you share with us how many are watching on the other platforms? Yes and no, Linda. So that's an interesting question that you ask. So I stream to Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And where I'm at the platform, I can see the total number of Facebook and YouTube users. And then Instagram is on a separate platform that I'm streaming to. So it's like, that's why you see me kind of sometimes switching back and forth between the two. So I can get a ballpark of how many people total, but usually it's higher than what I'm seeing, which is kind of cool. But anyways, so guys, with that note, I will kind of let you go. And I think it's time for me to finish my decaf coffee. But in the meantime, guys, seriously, please consider joining the email list that I have on CosiTalks.com. I don't spam. Take a look at all my other platforms, Instagram, all these places. If you're not following me there yet, please consider doing so. And if you have the chance, please share the show to your Facebook platforms or to your Facebook pages, Instagram, and what have you, just to kind of help spread the word. So on that note, I'm going to say thank you for letting me be a part of your lives this evening. And I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Buenas noches, gusto conocerlos a todos. Y a ver, Viviana es del Ecuador y está en el Chile. Bueno, me alegro que te viniste a conectar hoy. Espero verte más tiempo también.